Hello everybody, and in today's video we are going to be evaluating the reliability of every single used vehicle on the market to determine which vehicle is most and least likely to make it to 200,000 miles. We're going to start by going over my methodology and how to interpret my numbers, and then we're going to go through every single make and model alphabetically so you can better find the specific vehicle you're looking for. And then we're going to be splitting the vehicles up into a bunch of different categories so you can better compare different types of vehicles. We'll be comparing manuals, diesels, E85 Flex Fuels, hybrids, electrics, and then lastly cars, SUVs, trucks, and minivans. And in each category, I'll go over the most and least reliable vehicles. And then at the very end, I will combine all 530. Yes, that's right. I went through 530 different vehicle combinations. I'll combine them all, and I will determine the most and least reliable vehicles to buy in 2025. And so I recommend you check out the description where you're going to find a bunch of timestamps to better navigate through the video to find exactly what you're looking for. So let's get started. So essentially what I'm going to be doing in this video is finding the ratio of vehicles over 200,000 miles compared to the total number of vehicles for sale. And I did this coming to cars.com. And first off, I needed to choose a year range. I chose 2017 to 1990. Let me elaborate on that a little bit for you why I chose those years. Here's a list of all the vehicles for sale by year. I decided to include the years before and after the range I chose to give you a better visualization. Here's that expanded range. Here's the actual range of years of vehicles I chose. And you can see obviously the newer the vehicle, the more there are for sale. And then once you get to below the year 2000, they really start to taper off and you really can hardly see those blue lines at all. So I still think it's necessary to include those vehicles because they have stood the test of time. And if they're still on the road, then it's worth including on this list. But I didn't want to go too old. You can see as this trend goes downward, it eventually levels off here. And it trends down because eventually vehicles will reach their end. They will have been driven till the wheels fall off, they've rusted out, the engine or transmission has failed, or the cost of repair is just too much, whatever it is. And these high mileage vehicles are slowly being taken off the road. And the ones that haven't been driven as much are still available for sale. And furthermore, the older a vehicle gets, the more likely it is to become a collector or a weekend driver, a vehicle that you just don't really drive often anymore. And that really starts to taper off at about the year 1991. So I maybe could have bumped it up 2 years, but I don't think it'll make much of a difference. And vice versa in the opposite direction, you can see starting in about the year 2004, it starts to taper off again. That's because the newer the vehicle is, the less time it has had on the road, and that's less of a chance for them to have reached 200,000 miles. And you can see that really starts to level off at about the year 2017. Didn't want to go any newer than that because I feel like that would just be diluting my numbers. So let me know what you think about my year range selection. Should I increase it? Should I decrease it in either direction? Let me know in the comments. So coming back to cars.com again, 1990, 2017, we're just going to choose our random vehicle. I'm going to go with Acura. It's right on top. And how about I choose the MDX? And you can see there's 1,195 MDXs for sale in this year range. So I would start by writing that down, 1,195. And then I'll come down to this filter here, and it'll tell me how many vehicles are under 200,000 miles really simply. 1147. Let's write that down. And then I'm going to do a little bit of simple math. So we'll do the total minus vehicles under 200,000. There are 48 vehicles with over 200,000 miles currently for sale. Now I need to create a ratio. I'm going to take that total number of vehicles over 200,000, divide it by the total number of vehicles, and we have our ratio. Looks like it's about 4%, which is pretty decent, not the best, not the worst by any means either. And after going through every single vehicle and subcategory on the market, the average came out to be about 3.1%. So if you choose a vehicle that's at about 4% or higher, you're probably in pretty good hands as far as reliability goes. So I think this introduces another valuable viewpoint on determining vehicle reliability. Anytime you view another video like this, you usually get some mechanic's opinion based on the vehicles that are coming in. Even various websites such as Consumer Reports, they all give their opinion, and unlike all those other videos and websites and opinions, this is going to be an unbiased review, again based on the total number of vehicles over 200,000 miles divided by the total number of vehicles for sale. An unbiased opinion strictly based on the raw data of numbers from cars.com. However, I do still think it's important to talk about what could influence the number of vehicles that make it to 200,000 miles. There are so many makes and models, and in each make and model, maybe some years were good, some years were bad. Some engines were good, some engines were bad. And there are a lot of other things that can affect the numbers, such as the likability of the car. How comfortable was it? How good does it look? Did it age well? Is it still relevant today? How's the infotainment system? How convenient is it? Are people wanting to buy this vehicle anymore, or is it just sitting in a lot? Because if a vehicle's not being driven, then it's not accumulating miles, and that's going to hurt its numbers in this test. You could also ask, how reliable is it? How many repairs is it needing? How expensive are the repairs? What kind of gas mileage does it get? What's the resale value? How does the competition compare? Again, is it going to be a car that people are going to want to fix and keep running, or are they just going to give up on it because they don't want to have to deal with it anymore? You could also ask, how is the car used? You could take a Jeep Cherokee, which is typically used for a bunch of off-roading, or perhaps a Chevy Corvette, which is a racing car, is made to be also driven really hard, and a lot of strain is put on those vehicles. Yeah, you can probably expect that they're not going to be making it to 200,000 miles compared to, say, a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla or something like that. A daily commuter versus an off-roader or a racer, two different categories. But nonetheless, again, all vehicles are held to the same standard. Not everybody's racing their Corvettes. Not everybody's taking their Cherokees off-road. And so it still says something if these vehicles can't make it to 200,000 miles at all or hardly ever. And these are just raw numbers, and they don't tell the entire story, but I certainly do think they reveal a lot of information and introduces a new perspective into vehicle reliability that nobody else has covered yet. So as we go through this video, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I would certainly be happy to take your considerations into the next video if I were to make another one of these. So why don't we get started? So the first make we're going to go over is Acura. I'm going to go a little more in depth on this one so you guys can hopefully better understand how to interpret these numbers. Here again, we've got the total vehicles, under 200,000, over 200,000, and this is the main number we're looking at right here, the ratio. And we want to typically see about 4% or higher to be above the average. And so you can see these Acura RLs and RSXs, these have very few vehicles for sale, and as such, if any vehicle makes it over 200,000 miles, that can definitely skew the numbers pretty quickly, and just having 2 or 3 for sale puts it at over 9%. But nonetheless, the fact that they can get a few vehicles over 200,000 says something, because if you look down here, this Acura TLX, they've got 362 for sale, and there's only one of them with over 200,000 miles. I will give them a benefit of a doubt because they are a newer vehicle that only started in 2015, so they haven't had as much time on the road, but nonetheless, it's still plenty of time for at least a couple to have made it. So that definitely says something about the TLX. Maybe avoid that one. If you go on carcomplaints.com, you can see that the 2015 to 2017 TLXs have had some pretty rough transmission issues, but that's not to say that the newer TLXs, 2018 and newer, might not be solid vehicles, because if I'm not mistaken, they have corrected those transmission issues and they should be pretty solid vehicles. And you can see by looking at the Acura TL, it's got a solid 5.8%. So that tells me that over time, the TL, which is the TLX's predecessor, has proven to be pretty reliable. So 2018 and newer, those might be solid vehicles. But again, this is going to be pertaining to used vehicles 2017 and prior. And this could be a higher number because the TLs have been known to be very reliable, but even the TL is subject to its failings and poor years here and there. Early 2000s, Hondas and Acuras had pretty bad transmissions, but after 2004, they fixed the transmission and they've been solid vehicles. So the point I'm trying to make is to just do your research. This video in general will be pointing you in the right direction to determine historically which vehicles have been reliable, okay, or irreliable, but every vehicle typically has its good and bad years here and there. So again, just do your research. Let's look at a couple other vehicles now. The ILX also, again, they've been around since 2013. That's plenty of time to have gotten some cars over 200,000, but there's only one, so not even making it to 1%. I would avoid the Acura ILXs. RLX, not a lot of them for sale again, and it only takes a couple to make or break the difference. You can see these have 3 or 2 and they're at the top, so hard to say if the RLX is a good or bad vehicle. And it's for that reason alone that I'm not going to be including any vehicles with less than 100 for sale in the final subcategory rankings and overall rankings, because first of all, it needs to be a vehicle that you can actually find. So 53 across the entire country, yeah, good luck finding an RLX for sale near you. Also, 362 vehicles for sale gives them a lot more opportunity to reach 200,000 miles compared to 53. And this overall is going to paint a much better picture determining the reliability based on a day-to-day, week-to-week, or even month-to-month basis. These numbers can fluctuate a lot, especially with these smaller number of vehicles compared to these larger number of vehicles. And so also for that matter, if you go and try and check my work, you're probably more than likely not going to get the exact same numbers. Coming down to the SUV section, we got the Acura MDX, also getting a 4.5%, and they've been on the road for some time, so that's a good number. And like any vehicle, they're subject to some good years and some bad years. Again, the early 2000s had rough transmissions. In 2007 to 2009, those were definitely super solid vehicles all around. Starting in 2010, they redesigned the engine and those started having oil burning issues and failing engines. Also starting in 2007, they had defective radiators where rust would cause the coolant and transmission fluid to mix and cause the transmissions to fail. And so if you were to replace the radiator with the redesigned Denso as preventative maintenance, that would fix that problem and you'd have no issues having to worry about the transmission fluid and coolant mixing. And then it would be an invincible vehicle. So again, that just proves you got to do your research. Which years are good, which years are bad, and does your vehicle have any preventative maintenance that needs to be done to ensure that can last a long time? Last one is this RDX. This only gets a 2.5%. Across the board, you're going to notice the more heavy duty a vehicle is, the more reliable it's going to be. And the MDX is the more heavy duty version compared to the RDX. So kind of makes sense. So that's an in-depth look on the Acuras. Hope that gives you a better sense of how to interpret these numbers. So let's move on to the other makes and models. Okay, we're going to try and speed things up a little bit now, moving on to Audi, the first of a few German manufacturers. And a lot of people say that if you just take care of these cars, they can actually be reliable vehicles. Well, these numbers are saying quite the opposite. We're looking at 18 out of 5,900 vehicles having over 200,000 miles. That's absolutely terrible. If reliability is one of the factors in your next purchasing decision, do not get an Audi. You can see that one of the main problems with these vehicles is excessive oil consumption, and as a result, an engine failure requiring an engine replacement. That on average costs about $3,000 to $6,000, and no one wants to have to do that every 100,000 miles. Next, we have BMW, and this is certainly a lot better than the Audis. A few of them actually getting 1.5%, but otherwise the rest of them proving to be also complete garbage. If you're looking for a BMW, maybe consider the Z3, 5 Series, M6, or X3. Check out this 4 Series. 787 of them for sale, not a single one having over 200,000 miles. Avoid that vehicle by all means. Moving on over to car complaints, we can see with one of the main issues across BMWs are timing chain issues. They're breaking, the guides are breaking, they're seizing, the engine is seizing, and ultimately resulting in engine failures, costing anywhere from $4,500 to $15,000 to replace. Overall, just another typical expensive German car that is not reliable. Next, we have Buick, an American luxury manufacturer, and they've got some older models that are definitely worth buying, including the LeSabre and Lucerne. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Otherwise, pretty average across the board. Avoid this Cascada, looks to be garbage. The Enclave is a pretty nice vehicle. However, it's below average in reliability as far as SUVs concerned. They have spontaneous engine and transmission failure issues, so be careful buying that. And it seems like the newer the vehicle, the worse they get. Check out this Buick Encore, 948 for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles. That is god awful. Just, my gosh. Look at their website even. They don't even make sedans anymore, only SUVs with a starting price of $24,000 and $26,000. That is not a luxury vehicle anymore. Hondas cost more than that. They've clearly lost their vision, their purpose, and care to make a quality vehicle. Do not buy a Buick. I'm going to say this a couple times throughout the video. Just like Pontiac, Saturn, and Oldsmobile, which are discontinued, within the next decade, Buick will no longer exist. Again, maybe consider these two older vehicles, but otherwise newer vehicles, stay away. Coming over to Cadillac now, and their cars, while they look really cool, unfortunately, they are not reliable, getting average ratings at best or not even getting 200,000 miles at all. So for that reason, I just simply can't recommend them. Coming down to SUVs, again, these are below average. And surprisingly, their high-end luxury Escalade is coming out on top, which for a high-end luxury car, 3.7% isn't actually that bad. You might want to avoid the SRX and especially this XT5, 492 for sale, only one with over 200,000 miles. That's absolutely terrible. Overall, for Cadillac, there are better options. Moving on over to Chevy, and holy moly, are there a lot of different models. Quite a few, can't cover them all, but you can see that some of them are above average, with the Cobalt doing pretty good. And what's really impressive is this Impala. We got 1,368 for sale and getting a 5.2%. Good job to the Chevy Impala. I would recommend that one. Everything else, nothing special. I would avoid them. You can see we got the Camaro and Corvette doing pretty bad, but then again, these are sports cars, and a lot of people also aren't going to be driving them in the winter, but nonetheless, there are still plenty of warm states and people do daily drive these, and again, they're just not performing. If you want a sports car, just know that they're not going to be reliable. Moving down to Chevy SUVs, we can see we're getting into some serious reliability territory now. Look at these numbers. Everywhere from 9 to 24%. Holy smokes. Solid vehicles. Of course, these are also the heavy-duty vehicles. These are the light-duty SUVs, and understandably so, they do not get good numbers. I would avoid these. And now we're coming on down to the trucks, and we'll see the same thing again. The more heavy duty the vehicle, typically the longer lasting and more reliable they're going to be. 1,500 at the bottom, 2,500 and 3,500 above it. The Avalanche, surprisingly, coming on top as the major contender. 1,500 is an honorable mention. This is a truck made in the 90s, and they're still on the road. They're still out there, and they've got over 200,000 miles. So if you want a classic, maybe consider that. The S10 and the Silverado 1500, although getting below average as far as trucks go, they are still, in the grand scheme of things, a reliable vehicle. Maybe just avoid the Colorado, and I don't even want to talk about the SSR. That is, quite frankly, an abomination of a vehicle. Next, we got Chrysler, and this is another make that I predict will no longer exist in the next decade. You come over to their website, and they don't even make cars anymore, only minivans, and for that reason alone, just due to the niche market of minivans, they're not going to be able to survive on just that. You can see that these Chryslers overall do pretty poorly. They have been plagued with oil sludge and engine failure issues. The Sebring looks like it'd be pretty promising, but they're not safe from it either, so I would just avoid all Chryslers except for maybe the Town and Country. Next, we have Dodge and Ram, and at the top for cars, we've got the Avenger putting up an impressive 8.4%. Maybe just avoid the 2008, otherwise you've got a pretty reliable vehicle across the board. I'd avoid the Caliber and the Dart. And for a sports car, the Charger gets a semi-impressive 2.1%, so maybe consider that if you want a sports car. Challenger and the Viper, not so much. I'd avoid those. Moving on to SUVs, the Nitro, while not very popular, puts up a decent number. Maybe consider that. Otherwise, the Durango and the Journey are below average, and I would avoid those. Minivans, we got the Grand Caravan, and while it's not as high ranking as its competitors, it still gets a 5.2%, so I'll let you interpret that as you will. ProMaster, that's more of a work van. Moving on to trucks, there's a lot of competition in the truck world with a lot of people crapping on this Ram 1500, and understandably so. As far as major trucks go, it does get one of the worst rankings at only 4.5%. As far as the 25 and 3500, I'd think twice before talking smack about those, as they're putting up a 12 and 15% numbers. Pretty impressive. The Dakota also gets a 13%. Not as popular, but if you can find one, it seems to be doing pretty good. Just not the 1500. Avoid that one. Next, we have Ford, a competitor to Dodge, and the Taurus is really the only car worth talking about, putting up a pretty decent 4.9%. I would just avoid the 2003 and 2005. Otherwise, solid vehicle. Nothing else is really worth talking about. You got the Mustang and Shelby GT sports cars that are not putting up impressive numbers like most sports cars. Moving on to SUVs, we got a strong honorable mention, the Ford Excursion, putting up an amazing 37%. Holy smokes. If you can find one of those, I would definitely get your hands on one because it is reliable. Also got the Bronco, although more rare, putting up a decent number. As far as mainstream SUVs go, the Expedition is a solid choice, putting up a strong 11%. Coming over here, maybe avoid the 2003 and 2006. And you also got the Flex, which is a smaller SUV, getting a strong 5%. I might recommend that. While the Edge and Explorer do get slightly above average, we're still not at that 4% threshold that we like to see for reliability. So they're not the worst, but at the same time, there are better options. And then maybe just avoid the Escape. Lastly, moving on to trucks, a lot of people might consider the Ford to be the best truck maker, and they'd be right to think so, with the F-250 and 350 putting up a strong 14%. F-150, I've mentioned it before, the lighter duty trucks don't get as strong of a number, but it's definitely better than the Ram 1500. We got a 7% here. The Ford Ranger, surprisingly only getting a 6.5%, but as far as reliability goes, it's above 4%, so I could still recommend it. Ford F450, surprisingly getting at the bottom, but they've been known to have radiator and head gasket issues, and this isn't necessarily a daily driver. You're probably going to be towing something pretty big if you own one of these. Next, we have GMC, the luxury lineup of Chevy SUVs and trucks, and we've got an honorable mention that going to the Envoy, getting 20%. As far as mainstream SUVs, we've got the Yukon, which is the luxury edition of the Chevy Tahoe, getting an impressive 10%. I would avoid the Acadia and Terrain. They are not doing so hot. Coming down to trucks, same thing we've seen before, the 1500 at the bottom, 25 and 3500 at the top. And although these heavy-duty trucks are above average in the truck segment, they are definitely the worst as far as heavy-duty trucks go. And then the Sierra 1500 and Canyon, I would just avoid these. There are plenty of better options out there. Now coming on over to Honda, known for their superior reliability, and again, as being proven in my video as well, boasting very impressive ratios across the board. Just maybe steer clear of all early 2000s Hondas because they had some pretty crummy transmissions during that time. Otherwise, some notable points to make would include uncomfortable seats in the early 2010s for the Accords, and cracked engine blocks from 2006 to 2008 on the Civic. And then coming down to SUVs, we've got the Element. And normally when you think Honda reliability, you don't think Element would come out on top, but here it is boasting on an impressive 17.4%. Next, we've got the very popular Pilot and CR-V that everybody knows and loves. And again, we're seeing that trend with the heavy duty Pilot being more reliable than the smaller light-duty CR-V, but you seriously can't go wrong with either of these options. The HR-V, it's a newer vehicle, just came out in 2015, but it's not off to a hot start, having a 0.7%, so I would steer clear of that. Not sure what's going on there. At the bottom, we've got the Ridgeline. Gets below average for the truck segment, but still gets a 5.9%. So if you take basic care of it, you should have no problems getting to 200,000. Here we've got our first South Korean manufacturer, Hyundai, and these are terrible vehicles all the way across the board. They are known for their spontaneous engine failures at about 100,000 miles, and that's a $5,000 repair bill. So quite frankly, I would just avoid this brand like a plague. It's not worth your trouble. Not to mention these vehicles from about 20 2011 to 2021 were extremely easy to steal. They lacked an anti-theft immobilizer, and furthermore, the key port could easily be removed, revealing the starter switch, and within 90 seconds, bam, your car has just been stolen, and you don't need to deal with that. Now we've got Infiniti, the luxury segment of Nissan vehicles. And again, this is another brand I wouldn't doubt if it's going to be discontinued within the next decade. They got some older vehicles that are pretty decent and worth considering, including the G35 and M35, putting up 10 and 12%. Very impressive. Otherwise, everything else is just pretty much garbage across the board. SUVs, same thing. You got the QX56 and FX series vehicles getting respectable numbers, but then everything else is garbage, especially this QX60 at the bottom. 393 vehicles for sale, none with over 200,000. They have terrible transmissions. Avoid that vehicle. And now we've got our first contender from the United Kingdom, Jaguar, and this is a terrible manufacturer all the way across the board. Couple lucky stragglers, but quite frankly, you should avoid this brand like the plague. They've got an assortment of engine, transmission, and fuel system failures. Do not get a Jaguar. Now we've got the Jeeps, a very popular vehicle with thousands for sale. Unfortunately, the reliability just isn't there, and I quite frankly don't understand why these vehicles are so popular. I understand some of them are used for off-roading, but for being honest, most people are not off-roading and they're just using them as a daily driver. The Commander and Liberty might be worth considering if you want a Jeep that's also reliable. Otherwise, I would just steer clear of this entire brand. They're known for having their power modules fail, and that causes a wide variety of electrical issues that are both hard to diagnose and expensive to fix. It causes issues with the engine, the transmission, and various electrical accessories. The Wranglers are also known for their death wobble, and it's both very scary and dangerous to experience at 70 plus miles an hour. I don't know why they haven't fixed it yet, but yeah, just avoid the Jeep brand. Not good. Now we've got the other South Korean manufacturer, Kia. And if you thought Hyundai was bad, these vehicles are even worse. Definitely avoid these like the plague as well. They are also known for their spontaneous engine failures at about 100,000 miles, which cost $5,000 to fix. And they're also known for being very easy to steal, just like their Hyundai counterparts. Avoid Kias at all cost. Making our way back over to Britain, we've got Land Rover. And like a lot of other luxury brands, this one is no exception to being known for its very poor reliability. We've only got maybe 13 out of over 1,000 cars, well over 2,000 cars making it to 200,000 miles. This Defender is really the only one worth talking about, but otherwise, these things are just known for their poor air suspension issues that are expensive to replace, plethora of electrical faults, engine transmission issues, etc. Maybe avoid Land Rover. Now we've got Lexus, the luxury lineup of Toyota vehicles and competitor to Acura. And these vehicles are definitely performing above average. Can't go wrong with any Lexus vehicle, especially the LS, ES, and GS models in the sedan segment. And what's really surprising is the LS model, as well as the LX model, that is their top of the line vehicle. And usually, the more luxurious a vehicle gets, the less reliable it gets. But not in the case of Lexus. These are their top of the line vehicles for reliability, 7.1 and 18.4%. If you want both a very luxurious vehicle that is also reliable, consider the Lexus LS and LX vehicles. Also coming down to these SUVs, you really can't go wrong with any of these either. All performing above average except for this NX model. Maybe steer clear of that one, but these are all very solid choices. Now we've got Lincoln, the luxury lineup of Ford vehicles, and for the most part, nothing to really brag about here. We still do have the old town car, and if you looked at car reliability 5-10 years ago, the town car was one of the first vehicles that would come up. They've got one of the most indestructible V8 engines of all time. Super reliable vehicle. Even to this day, they're still on the road. Get one if you can. The Lincoln Navigator is also performing pretty strong at 7.2%. Otherwise, the rest of the vehicles are pretty subpar. They've got quite a variety of issues, including coolant leaking, causing overheating, and engine failures while driving, transmission fluid leaks, power transfer unit shuttering and failing, brakes failing to stop the car. Quite a few dangerous aspects to these vehicles that you wouldn't want to find yourselves in. So Yeah, maybe just avoid it altogether unless you plan on getting the old town car or Navigator. And next we've got Mazda, and this is a pretty average manufacturer across the board. Not the best, but certainly not the worst either by any means. And this manufacturer is pretty inconsistent across the board. Not really sure what to say about it. For each model of vehicle, they've got some good years and they've also got some bad years. So if you do your research, you could certainly find a couple solid models, but I would just be careful. Now we've reached Mercedes-Benz, highly sought after vehicles, and understandably so. They are very slick looking, very luxurious, fun to drive, however also very irreliable. I will say though that compared to their competition, that being Audi, BMW, and Porsche, these have probably got to be the most reliable. And in fact, when I put all the luxury German vehicles side by side in a list, Mercedes got the top 3 spots with their CLK class, the G class, and the M class. Still not the most reliable vehicles in the grand scheme of things, but I guess as far as German luxury vehicles go, these are the best ones to get. Not too many vehicles with over 200,000, but nonetheless a more consistent presence. And also we're also seeing this weird backwards trend again, where the more luxurious the vehicle, the more reliable it is. Look at the C class. Nearly 1,700 vehicles for sale, and only 5 of them have over 200,000 miles. I would highly recommend instead getting an Acura or Lexus for the same price, which is also going to be just as, if not more luxurious, and significantly more reliable than the C-Class. Avoid this car. Also avoid this SL series, 667 for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles. Coming down to the SUVs, we got the M-Class, which is probably the most reliable amongst the brand, although still definitely below average for its segment. And then the rest are, as usual, pretty much garbage in reliability. Some common problems would include engine balance shaft failures, which are pretty expensive to fix, so watch out for those vehicles with that issue. They've also got a wide variety of engine knocking, engine clunking, and engine failure issues, as well as a wide variety of electronic issues as well. And it also just in general seems like the newer the vehicle and the more electronics they put into the vehicle, the less reliable they are. Like these S-Classes, these old 90s and early 2000s S-Classes used to be brutes, but the newer they get, the worse they are. So take that into consideration as well. And now we've got the Mini brand, which became popular in the early 2000s after the movie Italian Job came out. However, these vehicles are just absolute garbage. Only 3 out of about, 2,000 vehicles having over 200,000 miles. Everything on these vehicles seems to fail. The power steering, the timing chain will break, the thermostat will fail, the engine will overheat, then the engine will fail, transmission failures, and I guess exploding sunroofs as well. Yeah, do not get a Mini Cooper, whatever you do. And now Mitsubishi, another brand I think is going to be discontinued, at least in the United States, in the next decade. They're just irreliable and they don't have a lot of sales. I would just avoid these overall. They're known for having premature brake wear and transmission failures, and I guess taillights that like to start on fire. Yeah, avoid this brand at all cost. And here we have Nissan, and quite frankly, I have no idea why this brand is still as popular as it is. Their transmissions have just been absolute garbage across the entire existence of this brand. In the earlier years, if the transmission itself didn't fail, odds are the radiator was defective and would leak coolant into the transmission, causing the transmission to fail. Then they came out with their CVT transmissions, and those are absolute garbage as well, worse in the industry. And not to mention, they've just got poor customer service and don't really do anything to help their customers. For the price point, I don't know why people would get this vehicle when there's plenty of better competition out there. However, like most brands, there are a couple standouts, including the Xterra, Pathfinder, and Armada. I might just recommend avoiding 2005 to 2007 as they are plagued with that infamous radiator and transmission failure combo. Same thing with the trucks, bad transmissions, bad radiators, and bad axles for that matter too. The Titan does actually get an 8%, which is above average for light-duty trucks, so I might recommend it. And their Nissan Titan XD, which is a diesel vehicle, is god-awful. Only one with over 200,000 miles. Vans are nothing to talk about either. I would just avoid this brand. Not worth it. Here we have our last luxury German manufacturer, Porsche, and unfortunately, this is probably one of the most irreliable manufacturers in the entire automotive industry, which is a shame because these are really slick vehicles. I know it's not a popular opinion, but I personally like this Panamera. I think they're pretty cool. And check out this 911. 1,224 vehicles for sale. Not a single one of them had over 200,000 miles. Even the Porsche Cayenne barely has a couple, just barely squeaks by. They have quite a variety of engine problems. They have coolant leaks and plastic coolant lines that crack. They've got head bolts that shear, cracked heads, cracked camshaft bolts, intermediate shaft failures, PCM failures. But the transmissions are good. They did something right. But unfortunately, yeah, maybe avoid Porsche if you want anything to do with reliability. Here we have Subaru, and this brand is pretty well known for their off-road capabilities due to their pretty strong all-wheel drive system design. Unfortunately, they've always seemed to have just that one thing preventing them from being an overall reliable brand. If you know anything about Subarus, you've known that for the longest time they've had head gasket issues, which is really expensive to repair. Otherwise, they've also had oil consumption issues and engine failures. And just in general, their boxer style engine designs are pretty hard to work on, even for some simple tasks like changing spark plugs. Overall, not the most reliable brand. This Outback is probably their best contender, and still, even then, it's below average. And I feel like it only does as well as it is doing because most people that have an Outback absolutely love it and think it's worth it to fix it. So there's that to consider. You get one of these vehicles, you'll probably hate the maintenance, but you'll love the vehicle. And here we have Tesla, the only all-electric manufacturer on this list. I know there are other electric brands such as Polestar and Rivian, but they are too new and just didn't make the video. All I gotta say about electric vehicles are that they are not reliable. The batteries simply will not last 200,000 miles. And to replace a battery will cost anywhere from about $13,000 to $22,000, and no one wants to spend that kind of money on a 10 to 15-year-old car. So yeah, do not get an electric car if you want something that is reliable. And here we have Toyota, which is widely regarded as the most reliable manufacturer of vehicles on the planet. And my study here again is pretty much showing the same thing. They're not just above average, they are destroying the competition. Just look at these numbers. Car averages are about 1.5%, and these are all easily above 3%, 7%, 10, and even 13%. Check out what gets first place, everybody. Scotty Kilmer's Toyota Celica. Kind of by a technicality, there's very few of them for sale, but still pretty funny coincidence. But yeah, really can't go wrong with any Toyota. The only reason some of these vehicles do as bad as they are is because they're hybrids and plug-ins and whatnot. So pretty understandable, but even for hybrids, they do pretty well, as you'll find out in the later sub-segment of the video. And check out SUVs, again, just destroying the competition. Look at this, 11, 28, 35%. Holy smokes. You want a ridiculously reliable vehicle? Check out the Land Cruiser and Sequoia. They will treat you well. Maybe avoid this RAV4. They've been kind of rocky over the years, especially between 2001 and 2008 with their transmission and engine failures. Coming down to trucks, again, doing very well. The Tacoma, being a light-duty truck, does very well compared to its competitors. And the Tundra, doing very well against its other heavy-duty rivals. Even the Toyota Sienna, getting a solid 10%. Really can't go wrong with anything. If I had to choose a winner for most reliable manufacturer, Toyota would win that award by a landslide. You get one of these vehicles, you will be in good hands. All right, we're almost done. We're on to Volkswagen now, the last and most reliable German manufacturer. And even though they are the most reliable German manufacturer in the grand scheme of things, they are in fact not that reliable. They have a wide variety of issues from broken timing chains, oil sludge issues, engine failures, transmission failures, ABS brake failures, etc. The Jetta seems to be their most reliable option. Maybe the Touareg as well, but yeah, just a brand that isn't all that special. Maybe avoid it. There are better choices for the price point. And last but not least, we have the Swedish car company Volvo, and not really sure what's happened with Volvo. 15, 20 years ago, they used to be described as just these invincible vehicles and also the safest vehicle on the road. And then over this last decade, you just don't really hear much about them anymore. Not really sure what's happened. The reliability is nothing to brag about. Pretty average for cars, below average for SUVs. They've got the usual oil consumption, some engine and transmission failures here and there. One unique characteristic of Volvos is cracked wheels, premature tire wear, and excessive tire blowouts. So that's something to be careful of if you're going to purchase a Volvo. But yeah, Volvo, not that special of a brand anymore, unfortunately. We're going to start categorizing these vehicles and handing out some awards for the worst and best used cars to buy in 2025. We'll start by going over the worst three, then the best three of each category, and then I'll show you the overall rankings charts. So let's get started. Our first category is manuals, and the worst three are the BMW M3, the Shelby GT, and in dead last place, the Dodge Challenger. Not too much information on the M3 and GT. The M3's got usual bad engine and transmission issues, as well as some radiator issues here and there. The GT's got bad clutches, and that can be expensive to replace. They go through a lot of those. The Dodge Challenger has a lot of problems, just bad fuel pumps, bad power steering pumps, bad alternators, drive shafts, engine and transmission issues. Definitely be careful buying these three. Also, these are obviously sports cars. They're not going to be driven in the winter, and for that matter, these are also going to go down as classics. I'm sure a lot of people are collecting them, so just naturally, not as many miles are going to be driven on them. Nonetheless, all vehicles are held to the same standard, and no one has driven these over 200,000 miles. That definitely says something. And now we're going to hand out awards to the best used manual vehicles to buy in 2025. Starting off in third place, we've got the Toyota Corolla at 12.3%. Second place goes to the Toyota Tacoma at 16.7%. And in first place, I bet you guys didn't see this one coming. It's the Dodge Ram 1500 at 22.2%. I know we were kind of crapping on that vehicle before, but you can't deny that their manual version is certainly a beast. And here's the overall rankings chart, and I've got a new column for you guys to look at. This is going to be comparing the automatic transmission versus manual transmission in each vehicle. And if you see the color red, that means the automatic transmission is worse. White means it's about the same, and green would mean the auto transmission is better. And looking all the way down, you can see that the manual transmission does just as good, if not better, than the automatic transmission. So if you're ever debating which version to get, you'll always be safe getting the manual. It's kind of a shame that these manual vehicles are kind of becoming rare these days. I mean, there are still quite a few thousand of them, but nonetheless, there aren't very many reliable options. They're just not being put in reliable vehicles. The only options really you could consider would be the Forester Civic, Mazda 3, Accord, Corolla, Tacoma, and that 1500. So there you have it. I'll scroll through it one more time. There you go. I also have a secondary chart with the less popular vehicles that had less than 100 for sale and didn't make the final rankings, but I still wanted to include for your information. So I'll just scroll through that really quickly. And at the top anyways, there are some honorable mentions. You can see it's the heavy-duty trucks, the Ford F-250, 350, as well as the Dodge Ram 25 and 3500. Look at these numbers that they're putting up. Anywhere from 25 to 48%. This very well may be the highest ratio that we're going to see throughout this entire video, the Dodge Ram 3500. That's pretty crazy. So if you get a manual heavy-duty truck, you know they are definitely going to treat you well. And now we're going to move on over to diesel vehicles. Same thing. We're going to start with the worst vehicle, starting with the BMW X5. Some common problems include water leaking into the interior, stalling while driving, and a complete shutdown of the machine electronics. So that's certainly not good. Second last place, we've got the diesel Jeep Grand Cherokee. Didn't know they made diesel vehicles, but they're proven to not be very reliable. They've got problems with their dashboard bubbling and wrinkling up, electronic shifting being unreliable, and their power module system going bad, resulting in a wide variety of electrical issues, including not even being able to start the car. And in dead last place, we've got the Land Rover Range Rover, a very expensive six-figure luxury vehicle. And as such, when you start getting into this price range, they've just got so many electronics that can go bad. They're usually equipped with an air suspension, right? And regardless of the car, air suspension systems just don't last long, cost an arm and a leg to repair. So definitely think twice before getting any of these three vehicles. And now we'll hand out some awards to the best used diesel vehicles to buy in 2025. And it was a pretty close race. And they all belong to trucks. And starting off in third place, it's the Dodge Ram 2500 at 17.6%. Second place is the Ford F350 at 18.3%. And in first place, barely edging out the competition, is the Ford F250 at 18.9%. Good job to those trucks. Solid vehicles. And then here's the overall diesel rankings chart. And I just clumped all the vehicles together, even if they had less than 100, because there, quite frankly, aren't too many diesel vehicles on the market. And again, I've got a separate column here that'll compare the gas engines versus the diesel engine for each vehicle. And you can see for the most part, diesel vehicles are performing better, but not all the time. So maybe refer to this chart. You can see German manufacturers make up a good chunk of the diesel vehicles. And in almost every scenario, the diesel engine is doing better than the gasoline counterpart. So if you want a German luxury vehicle, I would definitely recommend getting the diesel engine. And a lot of trucks are diesels as well, understandably so. Really can't go wrong with any of the truck diesels. If I were getting a truck, I definitely want one that has a diesel engine in it. Our next category is E85 Flex Fuel vehicles. And the worst vehicles to buy would be the Mercedes M-Class. I really don't have too much information on that vehicle, plus it's not very popular. Then there is the Buick Verano. It has known issues with oil consumption, dead batteries, engine stalling while driving, and paint peeling. And the last one is the Audi Q5, which also has oil consumption problems, bad timing chains, blown cylinders, and engine died while driving. And then awards for best used E85 vehicles in 2025 belong to the Chevy Tahoe getting 19.9%, the GMC Yukon at 22%, and in first place we've got the Chevy Suburban E85 Flex Fuel, putting up a whopping 30.7%. Absolutely amazing. And here is the E85 Flex Fuel ranking chart. And in case you don't know what E85 fuel is, normal fuel is either 100% gasoline with no ethanol or has up to 10% ethanol. E85 is the opposite of that. It's 85% ethanol, hence E85, and then 15% gasoline. And there are a couple differences between E85 and regular gasoline. For starters, the E85 is going to reduce your gas mileage, but it's also going to cost less per gallon too, so it kind of evens out in that aspect. E85 is also supposed to burn cleaner compared to gasoline and should theoretically reduce the amount of sludge buildup and residue in your engine, and it also will reduce the amount of emissions and greenhouse gases it puts out as well. So again, like in the other charts, I've got a side-by-side comparison between the gas engine and E85 engine, and you can see for the most part, the E85 engine is more reliable than its gas counterpart. Not all the time, there are a couple exceptions here and there, so definitely refer to the chart and look for your vehicle if you're considering between which engine to choose. And I should also make a quick note that the E85 engines can also use regular gasoline, hence why they're also called flex fuel vehicles. You'll know you have a flex fuel vehicle if your gas cap is yellow. So there you have it, E85 vehicles, everybody. Our next category is going to be hybrids, and if you're looking to save some money and get some better fuel economy, maybe think twice before getting these three vehicles. Starting off in third last place, we've got the Toyota RAV4. However, it should be noted that they only started introducing the hybrid version of this vehicle in 2016, and it really hasn't had as much of a chance to be on the road compared to the other vehicles. I should also note that the regular gasoline version of this car only has a 3.8% ratio, so also not the greatest as far as SUVs go. Something to think about. Can't say it's good or bad yet since it's too new. Next is the Chevy Volt, and these vehicles are known to have brake failures and brake issues, as well as the engine stalling while driving and then the engine not starting all of a sudden. So those are not good hybrid vehicles either. And then in last place, we've got the Hyundai Sonata. Hyundais are already known for making bad engines that'll just spontaneously fail within 150,000 miles. Add in a hybrid battery, which is also known to just not last a long time and be expensive to replace. And yeah, safe to say nobody's driving these vehicles for very long. Only 1 out of 260 of these have gotten over 200,000 miles. And as for the best used hybrids to buy in 2025, you're going to see that Toyota and Lexus absolutely dominate the competition. Starting off in third place, we've got the Lexus RX 400 and 450 getting a 5.4%. Then we got the Toyota Prius hybrid getting 7%. And in first place, surprisingly, is the Toyota Highlander getting 12.6%. Their gasoline variant actually gets a 7.5%, considerably less, and I thought it was a typo somewhere, but nope, I double checked it. So if you want to save gas money and have a nice SUV, get that Toyota Highlander. And here's the hybrid ranking chart. And again, here is that column comparing non-hybrids versus hybrids. And you can see pretty much across the board that the gasoline version is going to be more reliable. Hybrid batteries simply just don't last for forever, and when they do need replacing, it's going to cost thousands of dollars to do so. Again, you can see that the Lexus and Toyota brands are just dominating this market, getting 4.5% or higher. So if you want to save money on gas and also want a reliable vehicle, get one of those. They know what they are doing. There are also just a couple other less popular hybrids off to the side here. Looks like the Honda Civic and Escape are doing pretty good. So now we're moving on to electric vehicles, and this is going to be an interesting category. I got a couple notes that I need to make, starting with the fact that electric vehicles were only mainly introduced at about the year 2011, with some models not coming out until 2015 and 2016. So they haven't had as much time on the road to accumulate miles compared to their gasoline counterparts. However, 7 to 15 years is plenty of time to have accumulated miles, and this chart is still relevant. Secondly, the battery technology from 2011 to 2017 just wasn't advanced enough yet for those batteries to last 200,000 miles. And as such, the batteries go bad, and you're faced with the option to either junk the car or spend anywhere from $13,000 to $25,000 on average to replace an electric car battery. And quite frankly, nobody wants to put that kind of money into a 10 or 15-year-old car. And they hit the junkyard, and that hurts the reliability rating. And so what I had to do was, first I started with my usual 200,000 mile filter, and only one type of vehicle made it to over 200,000 miles. So again, I had to go through all of the vehicles with a 150,000 mile filter. And again, I couldn't even come up with the second place. No other vehicle has cars that make it to 150,000 miles. So finally, after a third filter, I reduced it down to 100,000 miles, and I came up with the following rankings. Starting off in third place, honorable mention actually to the Nissan Leaf, as it got barely edged out by our third place winner, and that is the Chevy Bolt at 5.1%. The Chevy Volt has problems with brake failures as well as loss of power steering while driving. Certainly a dangerous thing that you don't want to experience while driving your car. Second place, we've got the Tesla Model X, with 18% of vehicles making it to over 100,000 miles. And in first place, we have the Tesla Model S, with 0.4% of vehicles making it to over 200,000 miles. Some problems with these Teslas may include unintended acceleration, quality control issues, people not getting the mileage that was listed for their vehicle, coolant and heater for the electric batteries will fail, and suspension component failures as well. But nonetheless, these Tesla vehicles are the best if you're looking for an electric car. And here are my charts. Again, you can see the Model S was the only vehicle that had cars with over 200,000 miles. I tried the 150,000 mile filter and got nothing. Finally down to the 100,000 mile filter, and I could create an actual ranking chart. At the bottom, we got the Spark, Focus, Soul, and e-Golf. Definitely avoid those. Absolute garbage electric vehicles. In fifth, we got the i3. Fourth, the Leaf. And then the Bolt, Model X, and Model S at the top. So if you want a reliable vehicle, if that's one of your criteria for your purchasing decision, do not get an electric car. Now we're going to be moving on to our first main category, cars. And this is obviously going to be including sedans, coupes, wagons, hatchbacks, and convertibles. And a couple clarifications. Again, I'm only going to be including vehicles with over 100 for sale in the United States. Anything less than that kind of skews the numbers. Plus, it needs to be a vehicle that you can actually find for sale. Also, I'm going to be combining all drivetrains and engine types for each vehicle together. Again, if you want to view separate manuals, diesels, E85s, hybrids, or electrics, I do have separate categories right before this that you can view. So without further ado, let's move on to our losers and winners. And so the worst used cars to buy in 2025, starting off in third last place with 667 for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles, is the Mercedes SL series. These Mercedes have quite a variety of issues that you would expect from German cars: wiring harness, power locks, the convertible top, active body control system, transmission issues, catalytic converters. There are even a couple of YouTube videos from some pretty popular YouTubers, including Doug DeMuro, explaining why these vehicles are failing and why to stay away from them. So if you're interested in a Mercedes or any German vehicle for that matter, definitely stay away from the SL series. Not a good one. In second last place with 787 for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles, is the BMW 4 Series. And the 4 Series is basically a two-door coupe version of the 3 Series, and these also have a wide variety of issues, including electrical problems, fuel pump failures, transmission issues, and the list just goes on and on and on. These vehicles were just introduced in the year 2014 and haven't been on the road as long as some of their competitors, but nonetheless, 11 years is plenty of time for at least a couple of them to have reached 200,000 miles, but nonetheless, none of them have, so avoid the 4 Series. And in dead last place, the worst used car to buy in 2025 is the Porsche 911, with 1,224 of them for sale, none with over 200,000 miles. And as you can imagine, these also have quite a variety of problems. These intermediate shaft bearing failures that we mentioned before in the Porsche section, oil leaks, coolant leaks, electrical issues, transmission issues, just the list goes on and on. Plus, this is also one of the most expensive vehicles to maintain, mainly in part due to the fact that it's both a German vehicle and a mid-engine vehicle. And anytime a car has a mid-engine placement, they are significantly more expensive to work on and require removal of the engine for a lot of maintenance that would otherwise be pretty easy on a front engine mounted car. So definitely stay away from the Porsche 911. You're gonna go broke trying to maintain it. And moving on to the most reliable used cars to buy in 2025. Starting off in third place, getting an impressive 9.5% of vehicles with over 200,000 miles, we have a unique car. It is the Toyota Camry Solara. Produced in 1998 to 2008, this is basically a two-door coupe version of the already popular Toyota Camry, and it gets an impressive 31 miles per gallon, has a median sales price of about $7,500. So if you want a unique car that is also reliable, consider the Toyota Camry Solara. And coming in second place with an impressive 10.6% of vehicles with over 200,000 miles, we have the Toyota Matrix. This vehicle was produced from 2003 to 2013 and is a 4-door hatchback. It gets an impressive 49.4 cubic feet of cargo capacity, gets up to 32 miles per gallon highway, very impressive, and has a median sales price of about $7,000. So if you just want an overall well-rounded vehicle in every aspect, reliability, cargo capacity, gas mileage, looks, and price, consider the Toyota Matrix. And in first place for most reliable used car to buy in 2025, I guarantee, unless you guys are paying really close attention, none of you will have seen this car coming. It gets an impressive 12.9% of vehicles on the road with over 200,000 miles. It is the Infiniti G35. This generation of vehicle was produced from 2003 to 2008 and comes in quite a wide variety of configurations. They've got 4-door sedans, 2-door coupes, automatic transmissions, manual transmissions. It gets a pretty decent 25 miles per gallon highway with over 300 horsepower. So if you want a unique, luxurious, reliable car that gets semi-decent gas mileage and is also surprisingly cheaper than those two other Toyotas that we just went over at a median sales price of about $6,500, consider the Infiniti G35. Congratulations, Infiniti G35, on being the most reliable used car in 2025. And here's the overall cars reliability ranking chart. One thing you're going to notice about the cars segment is that their average ratio numbers aren't really that high compared to the SUVs, trucks, and minivans. That's because these vehicles are simply made to get the car itself and the occupants in the vehicle moving. And with that said, they're basically running pretty close to their maximum capacity, their maximum limit, and it's putting a lot of extra stress on the engine, transmission, and the overall chassis of the vehicle compared to, say, a big diesel truck, which is made to haul and tow tens of thousands of pounds. But then when the vehicle is not towing or hauling anything, that's not putting hardly any strain or stress on the vehicle compared to what it can do. And so that's kind of why these cars don't do so well, with an average ranking of about 2%, not very good. And you're going to see quite a few vehicles that you would expect to make it at the top, including the Toyota Avalon, the Lincoln Town Car with its invincible V8, the Prius, the Camry, the TL Accord and TSX from Honda and Acura, as well as some pretty old classic vehicles from Chevy and Ford, the Cobalt, Impala, and Taurus, as well as the Civic down here. I thought would have been a little bit higher, but it's still pretty much at the top, all things considered. A couple surprising entries at the top I wouldn't have expected, starting with the Infiniti G35, our winner, as well as the Avenger, the Lexus LS, which is a very luxurious car, and normally with the more electrical features that you implement into a vehicle, the less reliable it is, but not in this case. The Buick Lucerne, surprising. Hybrid made it to the top. Very good job to the Toyota Camry Hybrid. And yeah, now that you found this chart, hopefully this gives you a bunch more options to consider if you're looking for a reliable vehicle. And let's kind of slowly scroll down through this so you can view all the vehicles in order. You can pause it obviously at any time. And you're going to start noticing these less reliable vehicles from like Volkswagen, Kia, Hyundai, Nissan, and just a couple surprising vehicles as well that you wouldn't have thought would have made it down this far. And as we get to the bottom of the vehicles that did make it to 200,000 miles, but might be worth noting to avoid them, such as this Acura TLX. It's still a newer vehicle, but considering that's been on the road for about 10 years now, and there's 362 of them for sale, only one of them have made it so far, so they're off to a rocky start. But again, the TL before that has been known to be reliable, so maybe they've fixed their issues. The Hyundai Veloster, 394, the Miata, 559, as well as the Corvette with 2,200 vehicles for sale. Only one or two of them haven't gotten over 200,000 miles, so maybe avoid those as well. Same thing with the Challenger in the C-Class, well over 1,000, and only a couple of them have made it. Not good options. Obviously, you'll want to avoid all these vehicles as well, where none of these have over 200,000 miles, not a single one. I've got these ranked in order of how many are for sale, and so, in my opinion, the more vehicles that are for sale without 200,000 miles, the worse of a vehicle it is. That's a lot of opportunity. We've got our bottom three here. And here's a surprising one, the Volkswagen Beetle. Everybody knows and loves this car. Herbie the Love Bug, the Punch Buggy. And it doesn't love you back, unfortunately. 661 for sale, none having over 200,000 miles. And here are the hard to find cars. These have less than 100 for sale. And so these might be a couple honorable mentions that you might want to consider. The Honda Civic Hybrid getting a surprising 10%, as well as the Buick LeSabre, Infiniti M35, which is a competitor to the G35 made by Infiniti, Buick Century, Insight, Eclipse, Prius Plug-in, Celica from Scotty Kilmer. But yeah, these vehicles just don't have enough for sale. It only takes one or two vehicles with over 200,000 miles to really skew its number. So that's why I don't include it in the overall ranking. But here it is for your viewing pleasure. And now we're going to move on to SUVs. And we're going to start with the worst SUVs to buy in 2025. Starting off in third last place, we've got the Mini Cooper Countryman, with 429 for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles. These vehicles have been out since 2010 and are still available today. And it's not even just the Countryman that you should avoid. It's the entire Mini brand as a whole. None of them are doing great. They're absolutely terrible. Coming over to car complaints, you can see that they've got various issues. The sunroof exploded, check engine light on, total transmission failure. And again, just a wide variety of issues across the board. Look at that long list. Yeah, avoid minis altogether. Not good. In second last place with 456 vehicles for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles, is the Porsche Macan. And again, this is just another terrible brand, unfortunately. Definitely the worst of the German luxury brands. Just none of them make it to 200,000 miles. Don't know what it is. The Macan's been out since 2014. And coming over to car complaints, we can see it's just got chassis design flaws. The rigidity of it, bodywork is just not good. Head cracked on all cylinders. Car will not engage its all-wheel drive system. Coming over to a quick Google, again, we can see the bodywork issues, suspension issues, and just a very expensive vehicle to maintain overall. A lot of electrical issues. Just don't get Porsches, unfortunately. And in dead last place, this one's kind of surprising. Would have thought it'd be another German vehicle of some sort, but it's actually the Buick Encore. And I said it before, I think this Buick brand is just going to be non-existent within the next decade. They're just not doing good. They've lost their vision. They've lost their purpose. They're not even making luxury vehicles anymore. The Buick Encore has a starting price of $26,000. Compare that to a Honda CR-V, which is not a luxury vehicle. That has a starting price of $30,000. They came out in 2013, 948 of them for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles. Coming over to car complaints, we can see there's adequate power, dead battery, lack of power. And again, they've got the small 4-cylinder 1.4 liter engine that is turbocharged. One thing I've noticed while making this video is that 4-cylinder engines in the grand scheme of things really aren't all that reliable. That's a lot of extra load and strain and stress per cylinder on the engine. And as such, if you're trying to turbocharge it, that's going to be even more load on the engine, and they're just not going to last as long. And we're seeing that in this case here with this Buick Encore. I also mentioned before in the Buick section that these have known coolant leaks, which cause overheating and then just wreck the engine. They've got oil leaks all across the board, failing engines, failing transmissions, electrical issues, brake problems. Terrible, terrible vehicles. If you want a compact SUV, do not get a Buick Encore. Now moving on to the most reliable used SUVs to buy in 2025. In third place, getting an amazing 24.8% of all vehicles on the road with over 200,000 miles, we have the Chevy Trailblazer. Made from 2002 to 2009. These vehicles are a standard sized SUV, 2-row seating. They get 80 cubic feet of cargo capacity, an average 21 miles per gallon, and they have a median sales price of about $4,500, pretty affordable. So if you want an affordable, reliable, standard SUV, definitely check out the Chevy Trailblazer. In second place, getting an impressive 28.5%, we have the very large behemoth Toyota Sequoia, introduced in 2001 and is still made today. This vehicle is very large, has 3-row seating, an insane 120 cubic feet of cargo volume, and it also, as such, you would expect from a very large vehicle, does not have the best gas mileage, 19 miles per gallon highway. And with such a large and reliable vehicle with the Toyota name, you know it's going to have a good resale value. So it's going to be a little pricey. Median sales price of a used Sequoia, about $14,000. But it'll be worth it. You want a large, reliable SUV, check out the Toyota Sequoia. And in first place, getting an absolutely ridiculous ratio of 35.5%. That's more than 1 in 3 vehicles on the road with over 200,000 miles. You've heard of it before. It's been around for a solid 74 years. It is none other than the Toyota Land Cruiser, introduced in 1951 and is still being made today. These vehicles are pretty standard sized, very comparable to that Trailblazer that we went over just a second ago. It's got 2-row seating, gets 18 miles per gallon highway, but it also has a very powerful 5.7 liter V8 engine producing 381 horsepower. Also has a cargo capacity of about 81 cubic feet, similar again to that Trailblazer. And it is also just ridiculously reliable. And again, with that Toyota name, these have an absolutely insane resale value. A brand new base model costs about $56,000 today in 2025. The median price for a used Land Cruiser, $26,000. These things are just invincible though. It'll be worth the cost. You'll have a super reliable vehicle that'll never need to be fixed. And as such, you're going to save a lot of money on maintenance costs. It'll be worth it. This vehicle has many purposes. It can be used for daily driving, off-roading, towing, you name it. If you want a universal, reliable SUV that's going to treat you well and last for forever, check out the Toyota Land Cruiser. Congratulations to the Toyota Land Cruiser on being the best used SUV to buy in 2025. And here's the overall SUV rankings chart. And you're going to see quite a lot of vehicles from Toyota, Lexus, as well as Honda, Acura, and even Ford and GMC. They seem to be the leaders in the SUV reliability segment. And you'll also notice that the SUVs average ratio is much higher than the sedans. It's about 3.5% as an average. And that's mainly because SUVs are in part made for hauling and towing stuff and having a large capacity of passengers. And as such, they're just going to last longer compared to, again, sedans. They're not made for that. So lots of vehicles to choose from. I'll let you take an in-depth look at this. And again, we still want to try and shoot for anything above about 4%. Let's keep on going down. We start getting into the more average SUV reliability category now. And on to the subpar. And as again we get to the bottom, we're going to make a couple notable mentions of other irreliable vehicles we want to avoid, starting with this Nissan Rogue. 2,400 for sale, only 23 with over 200,000 miles. That's pretty bad. Again, avoid the Jeep Patriot. Avoid the X5, the Tucson. What else we got? This Volkswagen Tiguan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, 819 with only 4. We got the Jeep Renegade, as well as the Audi Q5. And in last place, we got the BMW X1. And again, here are all the vehicles that did not have a single vehicle reach 200,000 miles. Again, definitely avoid all of these as well. With our dishonorable mention going to the Lincoln MKC, 420 for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles. And again, I have the hard to find SUVs list over here, and I've got them ranked by the number of total vehicles with over 200,000 miles. So we look at that number first, and then we look at the ratio second. And so I think these are all worth being an honorable mention, including the Infiniti QX56, the Dodge Nitro, GMC Envoy, and Ford Excursion getting an amazing 36.8%. Find one of these, it'd be worth buying. And moving on over to trucks, same thing. We're going to start with the worst trucks. And in third last place, we have the Chevy Colorado, only getting a measly 2.7% of all trucks on the road having over 200,000 miles, which is kind of surprising because that's better than most cars, which cars averages was about 1.5% to 2%, somewhere around there. These vehicles came out in 2004, and you can see they've had quite a few bad years, a couple good years, but then again, they had some more bad years again. These early years had issues with the interior fan, misfires, rust, ABS light issues, more brake squeaking issues, check engine lights, difficulty starting, and some problems with these newer Colorados include transmission issues, lots of transmission issues and failures, sluggish starts, loss of power steering, engine stall, shaking while driving, more shuddering and slippering. Yeah, maybe avoid these Colorados, not the best choice. In second last place, we have the Nissan Titan XD, and this is supposed to be the heavy-duty diesel version of the Nissan Titan, and only one out of 197 of these trucks have over 200,000 miles. One caveat is they were just introduced in 2016, so they haven't had as much time and opportunity on the road to accumulate miles. However, 9 years should be more than enough for some of these vehicles to have made it. None of the other trucks seem to have a problem, as you'll soon see. And some comments on the forums will say that the 5.0 liter V8 Cummins engine is one of the worst engines that Cummins has ever made. Here are some more detailed descriptions of that. The diesel exhaust fluid pump fails, probably as a result that will cause EGR ports to get clogged up, result in various misfires and engine problems, resulting in coolers cracking, things breaking, the turbochargers are having issues, the transmissions are also obviously problematic, coolant reservoir sensor failures resulting in limp mode, fuel pump failures. These are just terrible trucks. Get literally anything other than the Titan XD. And in dead last place for trucks, I made one exception. This vehicle only has 84 for sale. I was normally keeping it to at least 100, but there are so few trucks, and this would just, quite frankly, make the video more interesting. It's a very controversial truck. Did not do very well, only made from 2003 to 2006. It is the Chevy SSR. You can see its controversial styling. It's supposed to be a sporty truck, having influences coming from the Chevy Corvette. And as you saw in the Chevrolet section before, the Corvette also had terrible reliability with over 2,000 vehicles for sale, and only a single one of them had over 200,000 miles. Coming over to Google, you can just see the list just goes on and on with the amount of issues that they have over the years. And it looks like that Car Wizard also just came out with a video talking about its reliability a couple months ago. So if you want to learn more about that, definitely check that out. But yeah, it's a truck that isn't a truck that tries to be a truck, and it was just a recipe for disaster. Worst truck on the market, the Chevy SSR, if you can even call it a truck. Now let's move on to the best used trucks to buy in 2025. Starting off in third place, this vehicle is a part of the best-selling line of trucks in the world, having hundreds of thousands of sales every single year. This particular model gets a 14.7% reliability ratio over 200,000 miles. It is the Ford F-350. This vehicle has a trailer towing capacity of 16,000 pounds, also can tow up to 25,000 pounds for fifth wheel trailers, and has a payload capacity of 5,700 pounds, gets up to 15 miles per gallon, and these have a median sales price of $24,000. As you can expect from a popular truck that is also very reliable, they're going to have a high resale value. Trucks also have quite a variety of configurations, so that can certainly affect the cost depending on what you're looking for. So you certainly can't go wrong with the ever popular Ford F-350. In second place, we have a direct competitor to the Ford F-350. This vehicle barely edges it out at 15.2% of vehicles with over 200,000 miles. We have the Dodge Ram 3500. And this vehicle has slightly better specs than the F-350, 17,600 pounds of trailer towing capacity, and a payload that's maybe slightly worse at 5,100 pounds. Much better gas mileage at 22 miles per gallon highway. And with these better specs, it's also going to have a higher resale value. Median sales price, $30,000. So you're going to get what you pay for. Dodge Ram 3500. And topping out our list is a vehicle I guarantee nobody will have seen coming. It's a light-duty truck produced from 2007 to 2013 with a 16.2% reliability rating. It is the Chevy Avalanche. This light-duty truck can tow up to 7,400 pounds with a payload capacity of 1,263 pounds and also gets 21 miles per gallon. And with it being a light-duty truck, it's going to have a much lower resale values than the last two at about $11,000. So if you want a great daily driver truck for some light-duty towing projects here and there, the Chevy Avalanche is a great choice. Congrats to this vehicle on being the most reliable used truck in 2025. And here's the overall reliability ranking chart for trucks, and I just kind of clumped them all together, even if there was less than 100 for sale. There's not that many options, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. One honorable mention goes out to this old Chevy 1500, a light-duty truck that was made in the 1990s. Less than 100 for sale, so that's why it didn't make the final ranking, but nonetheless, it's still out there, still trucking. So if you want an old, reliable truck, check out the Chevy 1500. And you can also see that these heavy-duty trucks are just dominating the competition with their high ratio numbers averaging from 11 to 15% compared to their light-duty trucks, which are a lot lower than I expected them to be. We got 7, 6, 5, and 4% from these major light-duty trucks. And I think a part of the reason for that is obviously, as we've seen throughout this video, the more heavy-duty a vehicle is, the more reliable it's going to be and more resistant it is to everyday strains and stresses. It's going to be harder to break, but also because most people, as you can see, do own these light duty trucks, and as such they're going to treat it like a heavy duty truck. A truck is a truck, and if it fits in the bed, then they're going to try and haul and tow it. But the thing is, these vehicles only have about 1,500 pounds of payload capacity, and that's not a lot of weight. That's very easy to exceed in the grand scheme of things, and as such, you're going to get a lot of people overloading their truck, and as such, that's going to put a lot of extra strain on the suspension, the chassis, the engine, and especially the transmission. Those clutches are going to burn up so fast, and your vehicle lifespan is going to be diminished very quickly if you're not careful. Of course, these are just comical, over-exaggerated examples, but you get the point. But nonetheless, with that statement said, trucks should still be able to do truck things, and these trucks here are clearly not up for the task, under-designed, irreliable. They should be doing better. If you want a light-duty truck, maybe choose one of these instead, as well as the Dakota and the Avalanche. And then for heavy-duty trucks, you really just can't go wrong with any of these. These are all very reliable options. So there you have it, trucks of 2025. Our next segment is minivans, a much smaller segment, but a very popular choice for parents with kids, as well as it's really good for hauling stuff around when you put those seats down. And we're just going to fly through this really quickly. In third last place, we've got the Nissan Quest. Not a very popular van. It was made for a very long time, from 93 to 2017, and there's still, despite that, only 100 for sale. It just was never a reliable or popular vehicle. Had quite a few transmission issues. Just plain and simple, don't get the Nissan Quest. It's not worth it. Only gets a 1.7% ratio rating. In second last place, we've got another vehicle from Nissan, the Nissan NV series. And these come in quite a wide variety of formats. They've got cargo vans, they've got passenger vans, they've got the smaller NV200 series, as well as the larger 15 and 2500 series. And these have had a wide variety of problems. They've got transmission issues, electrical failures, as well as weird alignment issues, I guess, which was resulting in a lot of premature tire wear. So yeah, just not good vans either. I would simply avoid them. In dead last place, we've got the Chrysler Pacifica, getting a measly 1.2%. Looks like they were made from 2004 to 2008, and they either rebranded or just took a break for a decade and reintroduced it again in 2017. And you're going to see consistently across the board at the bottom here, just a lot of rust issues in those early years. Rust, 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 rot, corroded, rusted. And then finally, it looks like they maybe fixed the rust issue, but now they've got a variety of other problems. Computer module failures, transfer case damage, engine stalling, broken mounts, more rust again. Maybe they didn't fix the rust. And then when they reintroduced it in 2017, a wide variety of other issues finally fixing that rust, but now we've got power steering loss, difficulty fueling, as well as a lot of transmission issues on even brand new vehicles. So yeah, this is a terrible minivan to get. Plenty of other options. Do not get the Chrysler Pacifica. Now moving on to the top three, starting off in third place, and unlike the Chrysler Pacifica, their other minivan, the Town & Country, gets third place, doing much better at 6.1%. This minivan offers up to 250 horsepower and 25 miles per gallon, has similar cargo capacity to pretty much any other minivan on the market, and has a median resale value of about $7,000. There you have it, the Chrysler Town & Country. In second place, getting an 8.0% and is also the most widely available used minivan, it is the Honda Odyssey. And these vehicles offer very similar specifications, about 244 horsepower, 23 to 25 miles per gallon, depending on the trim you get, And these have a much higher resale value due to the Honda name. You're going to be spending about $14,600 for a median resale value of these Honda Odysseys. And in first place, I'm sure you can guess it based on all the other vehicles that have been winning throughout this competition, we've got a contender from Toyota. It's the Sienna at 10%. Again, comparable statistics, a little more horsepower at 266, but slightly less gas mileage at only about 23. The Siennas have a slightly lower median resale value compared to the Honda Odysseys at about $12,000, and they're more reliable, so that's a really good deal. So congrats to the Toyota Sienna on being the most reliable used minivan of 2025. And then really quickly, here's the overall minivan chart. Not a whole lot to say because there's not a lot of options. I guess in the middle you've got the Dodge Grand Caravan as well as the Kia Sedona for a Kia vehicle putting up a 4.9%. That's rather impressive, but quite frankly, knowing the Kia brand, I still don't trust it. Plenty of other options if you can help it. And we finally made it to the moment everybody's been waiting for, the grand finals for most and least reliable used vehicles to buy in 2025. And if you're skipping ahead and I've just started watching video at this moment, welcome. If you want more information on each of these individual vehicles that I'm about to discuss, you can go to their respective segments. Otherwise, I'll still say a little something about each of them. So without further ado, let's get started. The third least reliable vehicle to buy in 2025 with 787 for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles is the BMW 4 Series. This is a two-door coupe version of the very popular 3 Series. It was introduced in 2014, and as you can see, it has just a never-ending list of issues, everything from cooling system failures, probably because they've got plastic coolant components, oil leaks, electrical problems, bad convertible tops, and just the list goes on and on and on. If you want a sporty German car, definitely avoid this one. 787 vehicles on the road is more than enough chances for at least one of them to have gotten over 200,000 miles, but they couldn't do it. Avoid this vehicle like the plague. Coming in second last place, we have a compact SUV and a very surprising vehicle that I didn't expect to do this bad. I would have expected all the vehicles to be German vehicles, but the second last place is the Buick Encore. And as mentioned before in the Buick section, this brand is just lost. They don't know what they're doing anymore. They don't make cars anymore. They're supposed to be a luxury brand, but the starting price for their vehicles is as low as $23,000. The reliability is just not there. 948 Buick Encores for sale, 0 with over 200,000 miles. These were made from 2013 to 2022. And coming over to carcomplaints.com, we can see that they have a wide variety of issues: bubbling paint, bad turbochargers, inadequate power, probably because the turbocharger went out, catalytic converter failures, dead batteries, grinding brakes, AC stopped working, electronic display issues, transmission slipping, bad mirror accessories, headlights accessories not working, check engine light on, just one thing after another. Do not buy this vehicle. Plenty of other much more reliable SUVs out there. And in dead last place with 1,244 vehicles for sale from 1990 to 2017, none of them having over 200,000 miles. It's one of the least reliable brands on the road. It is the Porsche 911. Introduced in 1964, these vehicles are still being made today. They are very high performance luxury race cars, and furthermore, their engines are mounted in the middle, which makes them very difficult and very expensive to work on. A lot of basic tasks will require removal of the engine. Furthermore, it's the Porsche brand. The parts are going to be expensive. The maintenance is going to be super expensive if you can't work on cars yourself. And if you put all these equations together, you get one of the most expensive vehicles on the road to maintain. Nobody's going to want to pay this sort of money to get this vehicle to over 200,000 miles. It's simply not worth it. And again, you can see here from a quick Google, the list of issues is just forever going, just one after another. And then again, add in all those variables I discussed before about how expensive and difficult it is going to be to fix each individual issue. Yeah, just a nightmare of a vehicle. And without further ado, I introduce to you guys the 3 most reliable used vehicles to buy in 2025. Starting off in 3rd place, we have a very large SUV introduced in 2001 and is still being made to this day. It has a 28.5% reliability ratio of vehicles with over 200,000 miles. It is the Toyota Sequoia. This vehicle was named after the giant sequoia tree based in California. It is the largest tree in the world, and as such is very suiting for this Toyota Sequoia because it is also very large. It has a very impressive 120 cubic feet of storage space. And the main part of this vehicle that makes it so reliable is the fact that it is actually built on a Toyota Tundra heavy-duty truck platform. Has the same truck platform, the same engine, same transmission, big V8, 381 horsepower. It has a towing capacity of up to 10,000 pounds, just like the Toyota Tundra. And furthermore, unlike the truck, most people probably aren't going to be using this for hauling and towing stuff like they would a classic truck. They're more than likely going to be using this to drive the family around, get groceries, maybe move some large objects here and there, such as a large TV or a couch, because it can certainly fit it, that's for sure. These things also have 3rd row seating, so if you've got a large family, this is also a perfect vehicle for you. It is going to last forever. It'll never leave you and your family stranded. You want a large, reliable SUV, this is the vehicle for you. And in 2nd place, we've got another SUV, and believe it or not, this one's even bigger than the Toyota Sequoia. This vehicle was introduced in 2002, discontinued in 2020, and has an absolutely insane 30.7% reliability ratio of vehicles over 200,000 miles. It is the Chevy Suburban, more specifically the E85 Flex Fuel version. Just like the Toyota Sequoia, which was built on the heavy-duty Toyota Tundra truck platform, the Chevy Suburban is built on the heavy-duty Chevy Silverado platform, and it shares pretty much the same heavy-duty V8 engine, the same transmission, same chassis. It can also tow up to 10,000 pounds. And in a similar fashion to the Toyota Sequoia, most people probably aren't going to be using this Suburban as a truck and doing big truck things. They're more than likely just going to be using it as a daily driver, driving their family around, going to pick up groceries, again, maybe transporting some large items here and there. It actually boasts an impressive 137 cubic feet of storage space, 17 more than the Sequoia, very impressive. And just like the Toyota Sequoia, these vehicles also have 3rd row seating, so that's definitely a handy feature. It also gets a little bit better gas mileage at about 21 miles per gallon. And what makes this vehicle particularly unique and reliable, on top of the fact that it's built on a truck platform, but it also has that E85 Flex Fuel engine. And to briefly recap our E85 segment from before, E85 engines run on a fuel that is 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline, which burns significantly cleaner. And as such, it's going to keep your engine cleaner. There's going to be less carbon buildup, less residue, less sludge from the engine oil. And these engines are going to last forever and ever, as well as all the other components attached to it. These E85 Chevy Suburbans have a median resale value of about $8,500. So if you want a very large, very affordable, and very capable SUV, the Chevrolet Suburban E85 Flex Fuel is the way to go. And coming in 1st place with an absolutely insane, ridiculous, and super impressive reliability ratio of 35.5%. That's more than 1 in 3 vehicles on the road with over 200,000 miles. I present to you the most reliable used vehicle to purchase in 2025, the Toyota Land Cruiser. And once again, in a similar fashion to the Toyota Sequoia and Chevy Suburban vehicles, the Toyota Land Cruiser is also built on the heavy-duty Toyota Tundra truck platform. So again, it's going to have that same sturdy truck chassis. It's going to have that powerful V8. It's going to have that heavy duty transmission. It's also going to be able to tow up to 8,500 pounds, maybe just a little bit less than the Tundra, which can do 10,000 pounds. Another main difference compared to the Sequoia and Suburban is that this is a mid-size SUV with about 81 cubic feet of cargo capacity. But what makes the Toyota Land Cruiser particularly special and extremely reliable is the Land Cruiser is extensively and exclusively tested in the Australian outback, which is considered to be one of the toughest operating environments in both temperature and terrain. If the Land Cruiser can reliably drive off-road in the Australian outback, it's going to be able to handle any driving condition that you throw at this thing. So congratulations to the Toyota Land Cruiser for being the most reliable used vehicle to purchase as of 2025. And there you have it, everybody. I certainly hope you enjoyed my video today. I certainly had a lot of fun making it. I put a lot of effort and research into it. And so I hope you all found this information valuable for your next car purchasing decision. I also want to give a huge shout out to all my viewers. I've been making videos for a little over 10 years now, and I just reached my 2 millionth view. That is absolutely incredible, and I seriously can't thank you all enough. So what did you guys think? How did your vehicle do? Did your car do well? Were you disappointed or even surprised by these results? Did I save you from almost making a terrible purchasing decision? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, feel free to give me any feedback on how I could improve this video, and if there's anything else I could add in case I make another video just like this one in the future. I would gladly take all your feedback into consideration in the next one. So as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and take care.